Hi everyone, it's Gary Nixon here of Mountain Weather Information Services, your planning outlook updated on Friday evening, the 10th of January. Certainly an active spell of weather over the next week to 10 days as powerful low pressure systems move in off the Atlantic. A chillier pattern too as we tap into a colder air mass that has its origins around Greenland, and that will dominate through next week, meaning many of the mountains stay sub-zero over most days ahead, with some significant snowfalls at times and some substantial accumulations, especially over the Scottish mountains. Let's deal with the weekend first of all. A quick refresh of these charts. Not much has changed since the last video I put out on Wednesday. It's a powerful southwesterly then through Saturday daytime, which will bring hurricane force winds to most of the mountains. The strongest winds ahead of the frontal zone, easing relatively once that front moves through. For interest, the centre of low pressure, the centre of the storm, so to speak, is well up off this chart to the northwest of Iceland. It just goes to show in our part of the world you can get very severe winds and be a long way from the centre of an absolute storm system, which is one of the problems really when it comes to naming storms. That's maybe a debate for another day. Basically, there's a front that's coming southwards, some torrential falls of rain in that frontal wave, and that will eventually transition to snow as colder air moves in from the northwest with time. By Sunday the front has moved southwards and we're all in the colder air. It's generally a showery air mass. The broad green colour across the top of the chart is just the model really resolving shower after shower. It's going to be that speckled picture on a satellite that you might see commonly in this showery situation. Freezing levels then will have dropped markedly, snow and hail rattling into the west coast of Scotland almost constantly, whiteout conditions on the mountains. It's still a very windy day, it's still gale force, particularly in the squally conditions around those showers. They'll spread well eastwards across the Highlands, fewer of them the further east you go. Some clusters of showers will pass from west to east across England and Wales too. Bit of uncertainty how organised those are going to be. There'll be 1 or 2 hours that may just get away dry away from these showers. Let's switch to have a quick look at temperatures onwards into next week, then picking things up with Sunday night into Monday. The chilly air mass is very much in charge. We may just lift temperatures a touch through into Monday daytime. The next frontal system will be spinning up from the southwest, but not much of a warm sector that really is getting too far in, so only a marginal lift of freezing level, and the frontal precipitation that arrives may well give substantial snow, particularly into the Highlands, turning to rain to moderate levels across England and Wales. Bit of uncertainty with that one at the moment, just how far the higher freezing levels get. Basically, it'll stay chilly through into the middle of the week. Despite the west or southwesterly wind, all the air has its origins off the North Atlantic and Greenland, so it stays generally cold on the mountains. Just to skip on over a couple of days further ahead, this chart representing about 1200 metres, and values shown here hovering around the -4 mark. So here's Monday's synoptic chart. The deep area of low pressure with its central pressure even into the 930s across the mid-Atlantic. Fronts then pushing in our direction. Winds will strengthen through the day to severe gale force once again pretty widely. Timing of the fronts will be crucial in terms of how soon any snow comes on. I suspect there'll be a few pulses of snow and hail, maybe even just running in ahead of these fronts, particularly across western regions, and then all setting in with time for some more prolonged snow across the mountains, becoming rain at lower levels, particularly England and Wales, but Scotland, that snow may come down to lower slopes for a good few hours with that cold air still in place. It all gets very tangled into the middle of the week. Precise detail uncertain. Generally, low pressure systems spinning in from the Atlantic. It's secondary features that we're really watching for the action through midweek. The main parent low to the northwest of Scotland. Secondary lows running in then from the southwest into the Irish Sea. Could produce quite potent storm systems, small-scale systems, but with some powerful winds coming through over a few hours. And within a cold air mass, any precipitation gives that scope for some snowfalls across the mountains. Who sees what at what time is up for grabs at this stage, but just expect things to be very mobile, changing rapidly through the course of the day, and the scope for severe conditions setting in for lengthy periods. By Wednesday, we may find ourselves relatively in between systems, but it still could bring a severe day across the mountains. You can see the isobars are still very tightly packed. It brings the scope for gales or severe gales across the mountains. It'll still be areas of showers, maybe something a bit more organised as fronts still drape their way eastwards. So snow falling across some of the mountains over a good many hours. Western areas probably the focus for this. You can see the next frontal system over the Atlantic waiting in the wings. There'll probably be another secondary low that spins in around Thursday. Now, although I would treat any numbers very cautiously, this is a chart which shows snowfall accumulation through until Wednesday. Now that really plasters the Scottish Highlands, western regions with a good amount of snow. Anything really upwards of 30 centimetres, you bear in mind it'll be blowing around all over the place, so there'll be some substantial drifting that may well go on where this falls, and it shows the snow across the southern uplands and across the lakes and Pennines as well. Doesn't pick out quite so much for Wales. Bear in mind the model is fairly coarse resolution. You'd still expect the tops of Snowdonia to pick up on some snow at times. Maybe a bit more of a chance for freeze and thaw cycles here as just the relatively less cold air gets in occasionally to Wales. The story for the later part of the week, and we're still dragging that cold air in around from the North Atlantic through midweek. The scope for those next secondary lows may be coming in. This model again will average things out quite a bit, so the detail isn't there. But I think we end the week more or less as we started it, with those unsettled patterns coming in off the Atlantic. Subtle changes, though, starting to develop, and as we head towards the weekend, that's where we may just start to see a change of pattern starting to emerge as pressure begins to build from the south, and that may set the scene into the week that follows, with higher pressure starting to show itself across the British Isles. How soon that gets in and how far it gets in, at this stage open to question, but just subtle changes on the way for the end of the week. It may well bring some inversion conditions back to the picture by the weekend and onwards. A situation something like this then developing in the longer range. That's the 7-day pressure anomaly through until the 23rd. This representing middle layers in the atmosphere, but it's the general trend that we can get. And it shows higher pressure in our part of the world. So an easing of the very severe conditions that we're seeing at the moment, I suspect. Some weather systems still skirting the northwest of Scotland, but maybe just a glancing blow of those rather than extending all the way across the country to throw the kitchen sink at us, as we're seeing at the moment. A greater chance for more settled, drier conditions to get in across England and Wales, with overnight frost common, some inversions, some fog. I think that sort of story into the second half of the month. So plenty going on, some severe conditions always to bear in mind then in the next few days, and we'll see how things go in terms of settling down in the longer range. I'll update the video again early in the new week. Stay up to date on our website for all your local forecasts every day. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.